Shadow Sleep Stories awaits. Lie down, close your eyes, and let the story unfold. The old brick facade of Elmwood High School loomed like a forgotten relic on the edge of town, its windows staring out like hollow eyes. Built in the 1920s, it had seen generations of students pass through its creaking doors, but whispers of its dark past clung to the walls like cobwebs. Locals spoke in hushed tones about Emily Hargrove, a bright-eyed senior who vanished one stormy night in 1957. They said she was last seen in the chemistry lab, working late on a project. The official story was a tragic accident, slipped on wet floors during a power outage, hit her head, and drowned in the flooded basement. But those who knew better claimed something far more sinister. Emily had been locked in, the door bolting shut from the inside, as if by invisible hands. Her body was found days later, pale and bloated, her fingers raw from scratching at the unyielding wood. Decades later, the school still operated, though enrollment dwindled with each passing year. Budget cuts meant fewer staff, and the night janitor position turned over faster than autumn leaves. That's how I ended up there. Mark Reynolds, a 42-year-old divorcee with a bad back and worse luck. The pay was decent for mopping floors and emptying trash bins after hours, and I needed the solitude. Or so I thought. My first night started ordinarily enough. The principal, Mr. Dawson, handed me the keys with a forced smile. "Just keep the lights low to save on the bill," he said, avoiding my eyes. "And don't wander into the old wing unless you have to. It's drafty." I nodded, chalking it up to superstition. The building was massive, with two wings connected by a central atrium. The new wing housed modern classrooms, buzzing with fluorescent hum during the day. The old wing, however, was a labyrinth of faded linoleum and dust-choked lockers, used mostly for storage. As the clock struck 10 p.m., the last echoes of the after-school clubs faded, leaving me alone with the silence. I started in the cafeteria, the mops sloshing rhythmically against the tiles. The air was thick with the scent of institutional cleaner and something faintly metallic, like old pennies. I shrugged it off, probably the pipes. By midnight, I'd moved to the hallways. The fluorescent lights flickered sporadically, casting long shadows that danced like specters. I paused at the junction where the old wing began, a heavy chain-link gate barring the way. Dawson had said it was for safety, but the padlock hung open, swaying gently as if recently disturbed. Curiosity tugged at me. What harm could a quick sweep do? Pushing through, I entered a corridor frozen in time. Faded posters from the 80s peeled from the walls, advertising long-forgotten dances. Lockers stood sentinel, their doors dented and graffiti-scarred. The temperature dropped noticeably, my breath fogging in the air. "Hello?" I called out stupidly, my voice swallowed by the emptiness. That's when I heard it, the soft patter of footsteps. Not heavy like boots, but light, almost tentative, like bare feet on cold floor. I froze, straining to listen. It came from around the corner, echoing down the hall. "Kids playing pranks," I muttered, gripping my mop like a weapon. I rounded the bend, flashlight beam slicing through the dark. Nothing. Just more hallway, stretching into obscurity. But then, a door clicked shut further down. A classroom door, number 213. I approached cautiously, the footsteps now silent. The knob was icy to the touch. I turned it, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. From the inside? No, that was impossible. These old locks needed a key from either side. I rattled it harder, peering through the small window. The room was pitch black, save for a sliver of moonlight filtering through cracked blinds. Empty desks, a chalkboard smeared with faded equations. Nothing out of place. Shaking my head, I continued on. But as I passed room 215, the door swung open with a groan, slamming shut behind me as I stepped inside. No, wait, that couldn't be. I hadn't entered. I was still in the hall. My heart pounded. I tried the knob, locked. Panic rising, I banged on the door. "Hey, anyone there?" Silence. Then from within the room, a faint scratching sound like nails on wood. I backed away, pulse racing. The footsteps returned, closer now, padding down the hall toward me. I whirled around, but the corridor was empty. "This is ridiculous," I whispered, forcing myself to move. I hurried back to the gate, but as I reached it, every classroom door along the way clicked in unison, locking themselves from the inside. The sound was like a chorus of metallic snaps, echoing through the wing. Back in the news section, I slumped against a locker, catching my breath. It had to be a trick of the wind, old mechanisms failing. I finished my rounds hastily, locking up at 2 a.m. and driving home with the radio blaring to drown out the unease. The next night, I arrived armed with skepticism. Dawson had laughed off my report of noises, calling it the building settling. But as I worked, the footsteps returned earlier, around 11 p.m. This time they were accompanied by whispers, indistinct, like a conversation just out of earshot. I followed them to the old wing again, the gate unlocked once more. Room 213's door was ajar now. I pushed it open, flashlight revealing overturned desks and papers scattered like fallen leaves. On the chalkboard, fresh chalk marks. "Help me." My skin crawled. "Who's there?" I demanded. The door slammed shut behind me, the lock engaging with a definitive click. Locked from the inside. I was trapped. The room grew colder, frost forming on the windows despite the mild autumn night. The whispers intensified, resolving into a girl's voice. "Why did you leave me?" I spun around. In the corner, a figure materialized, translucent, dressed in a pleated skirt and blouse from another era. Emily. Her face was gaunt, eyes sunken, hair matted with what looked like dried blood. She floated toward me, her feet not touching the ground, leaving faint, wet footprints in her wake. "Please," she murmured, her voice echoing as if from underwater. "They locked me in. The others. They laughed." I backed against the door, fumbling for the knob. It turned freely now, but as I yanked it open, Emily's hand, cold as ice, grazed my shoulder. "Don't go," she pleaded. I bolted into the hall, her cries following me. "Come back!" The hallways twisted in my panic, doors locking and unlocking in a maddening rhythm. I stumbled into the basement stairs, the air thick with mildew. Down there, the old boiler room where Emily had supposedly drowned. Water dripped from cracked pipe, pooling on the floor. The footsteps pursued me, splashing through the puddles. In the dim light, I saw her again, standing at the far end, her form flickering like a bad projection. "It was a prank," she said, her voice clearer now. "The popular kids locked the lab door while I worked. Storm came, power out, basement flooded. I screamed, but no one came." Horror gripped me. The story wasn't an accident. It was murder by negligence. Those kids were probably grandparents now, living with buried guilt. Emily advanced, her eyes pleading yet vengeful. "They walk free, but you hear me now." The water level rose impossibly, lapping at my ankles, then knees. Doors above slammed shut, stealing the basement. I waded toward the stairs, but they seemed to stretch further away. Emily's hand clutched my arm, pulling me under. "Stay with me," she whispered. Visions flooded my mind, her terror that night, pounding on the locked door as water rose, her final gasps. With a surge of adrenaline, I broke free, scrambling up the stairs. The water receded as suddenly as it came, leaving me drenched and shivering. I burst into the atrium, collapsing near the exit. From then on, the hauntings escalated. Every night, the footsteps grew bolder, Emily's apparition appearing in mirrors, her face superimposed over my reflection. Classrooms locked randomly, trapping me inside with whispers of her story. I researched her in my off hours. Old newspapers confirmed the accident, but forums buzzed with rumors. Other janitors had quit after similar experiences. One even hospitalized for hallucinations. One evening, I confronted Dawson. "What's really going on here?" I demanded. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Emily, she's restless. It started after the renovations disturbed her resting place in the basement. We've tried everything. priests, psychics. But she wants justice. The ones who locked her in, they're still alive in town. Names. He gave me names. 3 former students, now elderly pillars of the community. That night I didn't clean. Instead, I waited in the old wing, recorder in hand. Emily appeared promptly at midnight, her form more solid, angrier. "Tell me," I said. "What do you want?" "Confession," she rasped. "Make them remember." I left messages for the 3, anonymous notes about Emily, urging them to come to the school. 2 ignored it. The 3rd, Harold Jenkins, showed up trembling at the gates. "I didn't mean for it to happen," he confessed in the atrium, voice cracking. "It was a joke. We locked the door, thought she'd get out eventually. But the storm..." Emily materialized behind him, her hand on his shoulder. Harold gasped, clutching his chest. He collapsed, eyes wide in terror. "Heart attack," the coroner said later. But I knew better. The other 2 followed suit. Mysterious deaths, all with looks of horror frozen on their faces. With each, the hauntings lessened, footsteps quieter, doors staying unlocked. But on my last night, as I turned in my keys, Emily appeared one final time in the hallway mirror. "Thank you," she whispered. Then with a sad smile, she faded. I thought it was over. Moved to a new job, a new town. But last week, unpacking boxes, I heard footsteps in my empty apartment, and my bedroom door, it locked from the inside. She wasn't done. Justice served, but loneliness eternal. Now she walks with me,